if everything continues to hold out for the remaining 4 minutes of today's count, we should be lifting off successfully and on our way to the space station in a few moments from now. If there is a hold coming up in the next few minutes in the countdown, we do have another opportunity tomorrow, 23 minutes earlier at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But for the moment, we are go. So let's take it back to Brian at the Cape for a little primer on the stage landing today, as well as watch today's liftoff of Dragon spacecraft.
Let's discuss stage return for a moment. Where the first stage comes back and lands, be it at the landing zone or at the drone ship in the ocean, is dictated by where the first stage was going. If we go very far downrange or at a high velocity away from the landing zone, it's just like a car with a limited gas tank. If you go very far, you can't return all the way. Falcon's propellant tanks are limited in the same manner, so if we go super far away, sometimes we cannot return all the way back to the landing zone, so we drop off and we land the first stage shortly upon the drone ship. That's what we'll be doing today out on the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, stationed in the Atlantic Ocean just east of here. Now, this is the same drone ship that we'd attempted the landings on previously, and of course it still loves us. Every single landing attempt, we resurface the top so that we have something flat and reliable to land upon. Now, with that in mind, it's important to remind that this is an experimental objective. If we crash on top of the surface of the drone ship, or we lose the first stage in the ocean, as historically has happened. In either case, you lose the first stage, but in one of those cases, you gain a wealth of data that is essential as we move forward to try to land these stages in an environment that poses no risk to human life or to infrastructural damage on the actual pad itself. So, with the secondary objective in our sights, we now return sights to our primary mission for today, because before we can land
We're now going to be transitioning to the pad. We're going to be going silent here to let you listen to the final moments of Falcon 9 as we're about to lift off.
Stage
it's
2
just about 2 minutes from the pad.
T-minus 2 minutes.
Falcon 9's on internal power. Vehicles in self-align.
LD, verify go for launch.
LD, go for launch. Stage 1, Stage 2, cryohelium secured for flight.
VCDC, verify Falcon 9 and Dragon are in startup.
Falcon 9's in startup.
Dragon is in startup.
Stage 1, Stage 2, pressing for flight.
T-minus 30. T-minus 20.
Falcon 9 secured at flight pressures.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Stop. Falcon 9 is clear to towers. GC, move to section 10.59 to secure the pad.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Falcon 9 is on its way to delivering the Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station for its 8th commercial resupply services mission. We are about to cross through max Q. It's maximum aerodynamic pressure. It's one of the highest stressed states on the rocket. But keep in mind, you're looking at a 70-meter tall rocket. It's about the equivalent of a 25-story building going to space. And that exhaust plume, it's about 1.5 million pounds of thrust coming out the aft end of the first stage. You just heard them say that the MVAC chill has begun. That's where we've started to chill down our second stage engine, getting ready for ignition right after separation. This first stage will continue to burn for about another 20 seconds, after which we will have main engine cutoff, or MECO. About 3 seconds after that, we will separate from our first stage, and then the second stage ignition will follow shortly thereafter.
Critical moment in the mission. The second stage will now begin accelerating itself and the Dragon spacecraft into an orbit so it can catch up with the International Space Station.
Yeah, so the shot that you see on your screen there, that is the second stage engine glowing beautifully, a golden orange there as it propels Dragon to the International Space Station.
You can even see the coast of Florida just down on the bottom over there, right beyond the nozzle.
Yeah.
So,
one of my favorite shots.
Now, there's a lot coming up in just a little bit here. The cheering you're just hearing right now means the nose cone is separated successfully from the Dragon. This is the aerodynamic cover that sits on top of the Dragon to protect it from the wind as it launches. The higher up we get, the less we need it, and it just becomes extra weight, so we pop it off and we don't need it anymore.
Exactly. So Dragon still has a long way to go, but what we're going to talk about right now is a little bit about the stage return.
So you're actually going to be hearing the crowd cheering a little bit more.
Yeah.
The first stage has a few different burn maneuvers to go through as it descends through the atmosphere to get towards the drone ship. So the first burn is the boost back burn. That's just about to happen in a few seconds here. The boost back burn is when the rocket turns around and kills off all its horizontal velocity, or enough just to make sure its trajectory lines up with where the drone ship is in the ocean.
Exactly. And then the second burn that we'll be looking for is the re-entry burn. And that's exactly as it sounds. It's whenever we fire the engines to slow the rocket down enough so that it doesn't catch fire as it re-enters the atmosphere. So that you just probably heard, boost back for stage one has just commenced.
So that'll burn for just a few seconds, and we'll hear another call saying that the boost back burn is completed. Again, this is great news for the first stage landing. The first stage doesn't have a heat shield like the Dragon, so it needs to slow down before it hits the atmosphere.
Exactly.
So the fast and hot atmospheric gases don't damage any of the engines, so we can reuse it.
Yep. And then the last burn that you'll hear us talk about is the landing burn. And if you've joined us on our previous webcasts, you're probably familiar with, we try to bring you footage, and so we hope to do that again live as everybody else sees it here as well.
So stay tuned. A lot of fun stuff coming up.
So far, this mission is proceeding completely nominally as of this moment. Second stage is continuing to power the Dragon spacecraft to an orbit of 300 kilometers by 260 kilometers. You're hearing everyone clap right now because the boost back burn has just completed. That meant that the first stage is on its way back to the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, about 300 kilometers off the coast of the Cape of Florida. 300 kilometers off the coast of Florida. Coming up, we're going to have an entry burn in about a minute or so, following by touchdown shortly after that, about 2 minutes. We're looking at touchdown around the 8-minute, 15-second mark. Keep in mind that first stage was going 4,000 miles an hour or thereabouts. It was over 100 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. We had to negate all that velocity, bring it down into guided entry down on, of course, I Still Love You. It's a very challenging and difficult maneuver. It is an experimental mission for us, as always, But as of right now, everything is proceeding nominally with today's mission. Second stage continues to perform splendidly. 200,000 pounds of thrust, roughly. That's what you're seeing coming out of that engine nozzle right there with the red glowing tip at the aft end there. So for this moment right now, everything at Hawthorne and in Cape and in outer space certainly is proceeding nominally, as we like to say at SpaceX. And so with that, let's take it back down to Mission Control with Tom and Kate for all the excitement. I'm going to keep my eyes on the nets over here in case, and make sure everything continues to go well for today's mission.
So we're just about to go into the re-entry burn of the first stage. This is when the first stage slows itself down just before it hits the thick part of the atmosphere, so it doesn't damage itself. Now,
go ahead.
So once the re-entry burn is complete, then we wait for the landing burn, and you'll actually be able to see the landing burn as it comes down. And that means
So what you're hearing now is the crowd reacting to confirmation that the re-entry burn has begun. You can see they're all super excited. Just a reminder, the primary mission to delivering Dragon is still nominal, still going well, but we are expecting our first stage to come back down and land on Of Course I Still Love You, located in the Atlantic Ocean.
And we do hope to bring you video. Now, there's a chance it may cut out, but we're pretty confident we'll be able to get some good video of the landing today. Now, just to reiterate, even if it's not a completely successful landing, every little bit of data counts. This is an experiment. It's not related to the main objective of today's mission, which is to get the Dragon to the International Space Station.